Welcome to Laying the Wood. I'm JT the Brick, and here's Hall of Famer Rod Woodson. And you traveled all the way back from Buffalo. You were on the broadcast on the Ravens radio network. That was a really tough loss for Baltimore and an epic comeback for Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, epic comeback. I mean, they were up 40-25. Fans, Bills Mafia disappointed me a little bit because Bills Mafia shouldn't be leaving. They left. They got a great team. They got a great young quarterback. They got all these weapons, and a lot of the weapons aren't household names on the offensive side of it, but Josh Allen is. And for me to see, like, beginning of the fourth quarter, almost halfway empty, it was, like, remarkable. And then I just know they're all kicking themselves because now they're saying, "Oh man, we should have stayed."
But you're in the booth calling the game with Jerry, and then some of those fans came back in. Obviously, that happens in sports where fans are walking out, then they hear the roar and they come back in, and usually they're allowed back in. The ushers aren't like, "You can come back in." But when did you think it was going sideways for Baltimore? 40-25 with Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh should be pretty safe.
They were slowing down defensively. They're up 40-25. Buffalo was driving. The defense was on the field. The defense didn't have that same moxie that I normally would see from a Ravens defense. Kind of walking around after a play. They weren't high-fiving each other. They weren't picking each other up. They just kind of like separated and kind of walked back to their spots because Buffalo were in the 2-minute mode.
Yeah.
They were no huddle. And so you don't have a lot of time to celebrate, but you still can show somewhat enthusiastic about it. They didn't have that same vigor that I've seen in previous years from the Ravens defense. Made me pause. I didn't say anything on air, but I did pause in my head to say, that doesn't look like the Ravens that I know and how they normally play and finish up games.
Here's what got me in that game. Everything that Baltimore wanted to do, they did. Zay Flowers led the NFL in receiving yards, had a big touchdown. Lamar had a beautiful running touchdown. Derrick Henry had such a great touchdown run. It looked like Buffalo. At that point, I was on the radio on Sirius, and I said, wow, Buffalo's safeties and linebackers can't even keep up with Derrick Henry. And then I thought of the other big part of the D-Hop one-handed touchdown catch.
That was a great catch.
If I tell you I'm going to give you those 4 plays before the game begins, I think the Ravens win by double digits. After all that, they still found a way to lose.
Yeah, they didn't make the plays.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming the coaches. I don't think you can always blame coaches. Sometimes the players have to take responsibility because when coaches make calls from the sideline, they're not always going to be the best offensive call, the best defensive call for that position or that situation or that down. You as a player got to make that play come alive. And that time, that fourth quarter, they did not. The beginning of the fourth quarter, the offense had some good plays, but starting around 7 minutes, Buffalo dominated throughout the rest of the game.
Well, we spent a lot of time here on the initial pod talking about the fact I believe that's going to be the AFC Championship game. You did too. You thought it would be in Baltimore. I thought it would be in Buffalo. It could come down to that. There's a really long season, but Baltimore started off 0-2 last year and got going. Cincinnati started off 1-4 last year and really got on a roll, but missed the playoffs. So what do you think now that we've gone to a 17-game schedule instead of 16? Because other than Emmitt Smith, when he held out, went 0-2 and they won the Super Bowl. I think that 0-2 used to be kind of a dagger. I mean, you had to spend a month to get back to 500. This new schedule now here with these teams that start off slow, it's a different league now. They can get back into it.
Obviously, as a coach, you don't want to start out slow like that. You don't even talk about that. I mean, everything is about progressing in a positive manner. But it can, and you've seen it the last several years where teams have stubbed their toe at the beginning of the year, but they play lights out. If you play lights out, especially in November and December and January, you're normally in the postseason. You have to play really horrible at the beginning, like Cincinnati did. You got to play really bad at the beginning of the year, try to dig your way out the rest of the year, and they fell short. And, you know, if you look at the Baltimore Ravens, they got to play Cleveland this week. Cleveland always plays them good. Outside of the last game last year where it was kind of a blowout. But then after that, they got Detroit. After that, they got Kansas City. After that, they got Houston. After that, they got the Rams. So they need to get their head on this. They need to get their head tightened on. They need to figure out what they want to be as a team, as a unit. Offensively, they're going to score a lot of points. It's the critical moments that you got to make those critical plays. That's what it's going to come down to for Lamar and the offense. Defensively, they got to come together and say, what do we want to be, and how do we want to play, and how do we want to envision how we're going to play the rest of this year.
You had a great week last week because you talked and you teased about Aaron Rodgers and what he could still do. I remember you sitting here going, he can zip it. I don't care if he's 50 years old, that ball's going to go zipping. 4 touchdowns in the game, but the Jets had the game won. They got burned a couple of times on plays they should have got off the field. They fumbled a kickoff. Aaron Glenn was calling out players at the press conference like, you will not be here, and he ended up cutting a player, if you can't get the job done. I thought Justin Fields played well. That was a game the Jets had to have. It's a home opener. The Steelers go get it, and now Aaron Rodgers has momentum.
Yeah, if you look at, first of all, what Aaron Glenn has done so far in this brief time as being a Jet head coach, is he shifted the culture, saying, listen, this is not the old Jets.
Yeah.
This is a new regime. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to have a standard on the practice field, in the meeting rooms, on the bus, on the plane. That's what we're going to be. And that's how you build greatness. So that's the first thing. Secondly, like I said, Aaron Rodgers, man, in 9 years, he's 41 already. So in 9 years, I mean, he's going to be able to get out of bed and sling it down. He can throw the football.
He can.
The one thing he did talk about is that he took some sacks. Sometimes his feet got him in trouble. Kind of moved. He kind of moved toward the pressure and not away from it. But with that being said, he can sling the rock, man. And then defensively, they didn't play the way I thought they were going to play because they put all their money on the defensive side. So they got a lot of guys that came over there on the defensive side. Jalen Ramsey made that huge play at the end of the game. So maybe that gets them going. But Aaron Rodgers, man, if he can throw the football and the defense starts coming around, they're going to be a tough out.
And they're active. They're bringing in players still. You can tell it feels like this all in.
Yeah.
Like this is a Super Bowl or bust season. One more game I want to get to in the open. I thought it would be the game of the week. I was close. Not with the outcome, is Seattle had the ball late. They're marching down to win the game after Purdy makes a dramatic throw into traffic. It's not Dwight Clark in the catch, but it was a big one. It was close. And then you see Seattle come down and go win the game. And who makes the play? A game wrecker in Bosa. That's why you paid him all that money. He ended the game on his own. Sam Darnold loses. And the Niners are all banged up. Kittle's on IR. He's going to be out for a month.
Yep.
But the Niners put a win in the bank.
And the biggest thing that you want to do, so you players are going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. The next man has to step up and play good football.
Yes.
And you did give Bosa the money for a reason. Whatever the defensive call was, Bosa had his energy level was at another level. And he didn't want to be refused to get to the quarterback. And that's the difference maker of teams closing games out, and then letting teams breathe. And then normally when you have close games and you let teams breathe and stay in it and feel good about themselves, they normally get that victory. But when you can put your foot down and say, nah, I hear you, you kind of march down the field a little bit, but it's still ours, and you go out there and make the plays, those are the type of players you have much respect for, because week in and week out, they're going to give it your all for 60 minutes of football.
When we come back, one of the greatest receivers of all time is going to join us, Tim Brown. He's got a Rolodex. He's calling on the big boys already. We'll have Timmy Brown join us next on Laying the Wood. We welcome in Hall of Famer Tim Brown. And Tim, there's a lot to get to. I want to start off first with the instant classic. Sunday night, Rod was on the call for the broadcast for the Ravens. Josh Allen's down 40-25, but he comes back and wins that game. And Lamar Jackson is the other quarterback who ends up giving up that loss. How'd you see it?
I tell you what, man, I've been in that position before. It seems like when we played the Kansas City Chiefs for 10 years, man, we couldn't find a way to beat that team if our life depended on it, So it's really amazing what happens in situations like that where, it looks like you got a game locked up, and all of a sudden you have a couple bad plays and the team is right back in it and with a chance to win. And, look, it just shows you in today's football, man, you gotta lock people down and put them away. Because if you don't, if you open the door, especially with a guy like Josh Allen, he's going to find a way to knock it down.
Yeah, I mean, Timmy, you looked at that game. When you look at Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and you think about, okay, the Kansas City Chiefs, and they lost their first game. We always talk about some of the better teams in the AFC and some of the better quarterbacks. Can you see one of those teams either being the Buffalo Bills or the Baltimore Ravens going to Kansas City or playing Kansas City in the playoffs and winning one of those games?
Oh, I mean, certainly right now you can see that, I mean, I always think about what Travis Kelce told me about 3 years ago in Tahoe. He said, OG, as long as we have 15, we got a big chance to win, and that's really the case with those guys. When you look at Pat Mahomes and what his ability to make plays, I mean, this guy throwing balls from 2 inches off the ground against the grain, taking big hits, 40 yards down the field. I mean, it's really amazing what he did to help that team get in position to win. But they didn't get the win, but certainly it wasn't because of Pat Mahomes. So, so as long as they got to deal with Pat, they're going to have issues, but certainly the door is open in the AFC right now. Of course, it's week 1 and we got a lot of more weeks to go. But I think at this particular point, everybody should feel as if they have a shot.
Tim, I'll tell you, in the rain in Foxborough, Geno Smith opened the game with a deep ball bomb to Trey Tucker. Game went back and forth, but I want you to spend a moment talking about adjustments with Pete Carroll. The team didn't give up their vision of their game plan. They never panicked. Max Crosby made a big play at the end of the game, and Pete Carroll won his first game as head coach of the Silver and Black.
Yeah, look, we've been around this Raider team for many years now, and we all know in years past this is a game the Raiders would have lost, and we would all shook our head and said, well, okay, if we made this play or we make that play, then we win the football game. But in this situation, you found a team that was strong enough, man, resilient enough to stay together and make the plays they need to make at the end of the game and win a big game on the road. Yes, it's the Patriots, and they're not looked at as one of the best teams in the league. But for a team like the Raiders that need this kind of confidence, it was great to see this happen for them.
Timmy, do you see Geno Smith? Like, for me, I saw Geno show his leadership skills on the field and on the sideline when things were critical moments for the Raiders. Do you see that with him?
Yeah, look, I had a chance to spend some time with him around draft time, and I was really amazed, man, at his energy for the game and how happy he was to be a Raider. And it was just it really caught me off guard, man, because, you're thinking these guys going to be cocky. They got all this money. They got this, but, man, I mean, he was so grateful to be in this situation. And, so I wasn't surprised to see what I saw on Sunday, him picking people up and really trying to keep this team going in the right direction. And look, I know for a fact, even after one game, that this guy is going to give us everything that he has to try and make this a great year for the Raiders.
Tim, I thought that the Cowboys did enough to win in Philadelphia. Dak looked really good. They had the Jalen Carter situation, and the game got a little bit weird early. But what happened at the end with CeeDee Lamb, I mean, this is one of the best get open wide receivers, big play guys out there. He dropped multiple balls. You didn't drop many in your career. What do you think's going through his mind as they get ready for week 2, knowing he could have put that game away?
Well, I think it's the fact that, they haven't had any live bullets, you know what I mean? And this was the first live bullets that they've had since last season. For CD being in those tight situations, sometimes you got to get ready for that. You got to get accustomed to that again. And I think he just got caught off guard. And, look, over the years, he's dropped balls. He drops a ball almost every game, it seems like, a real catchable pass. But, in this situation, when it was multiple passes he had a chance to make plays on, and he didn't, it just made him look really bad, as if he wasn't prepared for the game in some fashion. And look, I know, you saw him going around patting his chest, during the game and towards the end. So I'm sure he's going to come out this week. He better, because they're going to need him. Without him, they can't get this thing done.
Do you have any advice? You're OG, you in the Hall of Fame. Do you have any advice for CeeDee Lamb? Because you didn't have many games like that, but seeing the game, knowing what type of player he is, do you have any advice for him?
One of the things that, when you drop a pass, it's really about your concentration. It's not about your ability to catch passes, right? If you couldn't catch passes, you wouldn't be in the NFL. So you can catch passes, but if you lose your concentration, if you're focusing on something that you shouldn't be, and it seems like some of those passes, all he had to do was make the catch, right? It wasn't about making a move or anything of that nature. It was just about making the catch. But certainly it has to be a mind thing. It can't be a physical thing, because you don't lose the ability to catch a ball in one offseason. That's not what happens.
Tim, as we wrap this up, you know how much I love history and knowing you guys. I couldn't believe the stat. J.J. McCarthy is now the first ever quarterback, going back to leather helmets, pre-Super Bowl era, to have a debut on the road and account for 3 touchdowns coming from behind to win a game. That's ever. That's Montana. That's Elway. That's Peyton Manning. That's the GOAT and Brady. And you're not too far in that region when you go back to a Notre Dame game outside of Chicago. I'm going to bring it to Caleb Williams. I mean, all the heat's on Caleb to show that he can play at that level. He was taken number 1 overall. And then J.J. McCarthy, who's from there, grew up there, comes in and puts a show on like that.
Yeah, look, I mean, let's be honest. It didn't look good for J.J. for about 2.5 quarters. It looked like he was going to walk away from that game with the big L, and all of a sudden you could just see the energy from Chicago, man. It's just changed. It just seems like offensively they were trying to rush plays, and the passes were not on the money. And anytime Caleb gets to running around, it's not a good thing for them. He has a great arm, man, but his ability, and he can throw the ball on the run. That's not the issue, but he has a very difficult time being consistent when he is running around and not throwing the ball in the pocket. So, look, he's going to have to do something pretty quickly here, or they're going to start talking about him in ways that he doesn't want them talking about. But the guy has a ton of talent, man. And some kind of way, he's got to figure out how to get everything going in the right direction, so he can be more consistent. They're bringing in all these great receivers and running backs and all this stuff, man. They're doing everything they can for him, but seemingly at this particular point, he just can't get this thing going.
All right, Timmy, we talked about the NFL, but there's a big game in South Bend this weekend.
Let's go!
The versus Texas A&M. You going up to the game?
I will be on my way, brother. Yes, I will be there Friday night. Emmitt Smith is meeting me there, and we're going to stay together at a house in South Bend. So we're going to have a great time, man. But look, I mean, this is a huge game for both schools, right? A&M, they're 2-0. They really don't have a big win this year, but they are 2-0. And obviously, we lost the opening game to Miami. So, this game for us means a lot, because the next 7 games we have are with guys or with teams that, we should be favored by 2 touchdowns or more. So we need to put a big win on the board, and and then run it up and see where we are in early November, and see if we can make another run at this thing.
Tim, safe travels. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, brother.
Hey, appreciate you guys.
Welcome back to Lay in the Wood. I'm JT with Rod Woodson. So I think the Dolphins are in big trouble for a couple of reasons. I don't think Mike McDaniel's voice is being heard anymore. It was kind of quirky when he came in. Boy, genius. Right. That's done. I don't like Tyreek Hill much. I think he's got a lot of noise going on in the background. I'm predicting in the next 2 or 3 weeks we're going to have problems with him where he's going to be talking too much. And they just weren't ready to play, Rod. The Dolphins have a standard, and that wasn't the Dolphins' standard. I was very disappointed with their play.
Yeah, I'm. If a coach is on the hot seat right now for the way this team played the first week, Mike McDaniels is on the hot seat. The way they just didn't look ready. And you're talking about playing a Colts team who didn't look great in the preseason.
No.
But they look like they're playoff contenders going to, it seemed like they have, especially you talk about Daniel Jones.
He looked good.
He played extremely well against this team, which the Miami Dolphins defense has always given some problems to the Colts offense, but they didn't this past weekend. And so I like what the Colts did. I like the way Daniel Jones bounced back and he said, hey, you know what? Sometimes a change of scenery is good for a player.
100%. I agree.
And
with
I think, listen, it's not that much in Indy. I'm from Indiana. It's not that much in Indy, so you can concentrate on playing football, become a better football player, and if you can keep moving in that direction, that's what it's about. It's about you have talent. Talent doesn't mean a lot in the National Football League because everybody's talented. It's the guy who keeps learning the game and he gets a PhD. That guy becomes an all-pro comparable to the guy that just wants to sit around and not do anything.
I couldn't believe how bad the Giants played because they won the trophy for winning the preseason. Their preseason story was great. Everyone's talking about Abdul Carter, what they're going to be able to do with that defensive front. And then I had confidence that Russell Wilson would play well. Not play great. He's an ultimate professional. He dots every I, crosses every T. He's going to prep. He's going to do film study. He looked old overnight. The Giant Neighbors is on the sideline chirping with Dable already. Right. He's got the towel over his head, which I don't like when we see that.
I can't stand that.
And the Giants are in trouble because their schedule is a gauntlet. And what do you do with Jackson Dart? I didn't want to see him play till week 5, 6, or 7. He might play at halftime of this game.
If there's another coach that's on the hot seat, it's the ball. But Jackson Dart, to me, I thought the Steelers should have drafted him, but they took the D lineman. And the old school way of doing things, normally the rookie comes in, even if he's a first round pick, sometimes they'll sit behind the vet, learn from the vet, all the do's and don'ts, kind of like if you've been a kid growing up with the parents and their parents are telling you, hey, don't follow me, listen to what I'm telling you to do. Today's game, they're putting them in. Now, I think if Russell Wilson's going to play at the level that he played at in that game, why would you not play Jackson Dart? He's more mobile at this age. He's younger, quicker, faster. Does he see the game as much as or fast as Russell does? Probably not. But he does have talent. I mean, I liked him at 21 when they got picked. I thought the Steelers should have took him. I think it's a really good pick. I think it gives him more athletic ability, but then also he might have that a better rapport with the younger receiving core that the Giants have.
I think the younger receivers are going to demand he plays if Russell Wilson can't turn it around. I just know if they throw him to the Wolves and he loses 4. Remember, Derek Carr started off 0-10. For the Raiders, and he turned out to be a pretty good player. Peyton Manning had the all-time, and Peyton Manning's different, the all-time interception record as a rookie, and he was able to handle it. I think Jackson Dart is tough. Now, you and me are going to butt heads over this one with Travis Hunter, because if he ain't playing both ways every play, then this whole thing was a ruse. Then I don't want to hear about taking him this high because he's not an elite receiver. He's good. He was an elite corner at times, I thought. I thought him playing corner would be great, and I think he's got to play more. If you're going to start him at receiver, start him at cornerback. His legs are fresh. It's early in the year. What's with this? We're going to pick and choose when he plays stuff.
The problem I have with it is he's not a big physical corner.
Yeah.
I thought he was a better corner than he is receiver.
Same here.
So I thought to find a shutdown corner in the National Football League, it's hard to do. A guy that can go out there and take the number 1 and he can travel all over with them and shut him down, and you can say, okay, you go over there, you handle XYZ receiver, and we can play over here by ourselves. The other 10 defensive players will be over here doing our thing. If that's not going to be the case, do you play him both ways? I think it's hard to play a guy both ways in a national. These are the best of the best.
Yeah.
Okay, think about this. Travis Hunter, 175 pounds. Derrick Henry is coming around the corner. How do you tackle that? Yeah, especially after you play 3 series on offense and playing defense and on offense and in defense, and then he comes around the corner. Good luck. I mean, this is a grown man's game, and I say give him spots where he can play offense, but let him perform at his best playing corner, because I think that's where he can be an all-pro player consistently.
Well, the Jaguars will take on the Bengals coming up on September 14th, and both teams are 1-0. I think Jacksonville played better than the Bengals. And then there's, a couple of young players out there. Ashton Genty for the Raiders, and we're talking to Tim about the Raiders and Geno Smith. He didn't have 40 yards rushing, but he got a touchdown. And you know what I was impressed with? His ball security. That was a game you could fumble. He got a touchdown. He powered his way into the end zone, and he didn't fumble the entire game. And the Raiders wanted him to have a heavy load. He proved he could do that.
You know what I really liked about him? The physicality.
Yes.
He runs between the tackles with. I mean, he is a physical specimen, and he doesn't look overly. He's not Derrick Henry size, right? He's not 6'4" and 240 pounds, but man, he is strong, and he's a little bowling ball, and those are the hardest running backs to tackle.
Are they?
Yes. I mean, the guys I've always had issues tackling was those smaller backs who had big legs, and they kept them turning. I mean, they're hard to bring down.
Give me a couple of those guys, the little guys.
Well, I mean,
Barry was different.
So Barry is different.
Yeah.
Barry is different. But when you look at the Cleveland Browns, you had Ward over there, way back, and I'm talking about older guys.
Yeah.
All right. You had I'm trying to think of the bigger running back.
Pruitt?
No, not Pruitt. You had Christian Okoye.
Yeah.
All right,
Wow.
Nigerian Nightmare. That big physical runner. That he was 6'3"-ish, 6'2"-ish, somewhere in that area, but he could run hard. I mean, those type of players are hard to bring down. And when you think about guys like that as a defender, like how am I going to, if I'm looking at Genty tracking people and just chucking people down and then throwing them off, you're as a defensive back, as a defensive player, you're gonna start figuring out, how am I gonna tackle that guy, especially the smaller corners in the league.
Yeah.
Like, how am I gonna tackle him? Am I gonna tackle him low? Am I gonna try to hit him in his chest? Well, they're gonna try to more than likely they're gonna be a lumberjack, and they're gonna try to cut him down.
Well, one more game I wanted to get to. The Broncos were ready to get beat. I thought they should have got beat. If they didn't play Tennessee, it was Cam Ward's first ever game on the road. It was a gift for Sean Payton to get that in the schedule. He was in that game, and here in Vegas and all around the country and the world, you're playing in a survivor contest. So the way that works is you get to pick a team every week, and if you survive, they win, you advance. Well, the internet would have broke if Denver would have lost, because everybody took Denver in Survivor, and Cam Ward had an opportunity to do it. They come home for their home opener, and I really like the way he played composed in a hostile environment. So when I look at the Titans coming up here as we get rolling here into week 2, keep an eye on them, because they play the Rams. Rams played well. They got to travel out there. It's the home opener. Nashville's a pretty passionate crowd here. I think the Titans are going to be in this game, and I think this kid in his home opener is going to be calm and cool and show up and play a big game.
I like what I saw from Cam Ward.
Good.
I know he only threw for 112 yards. But when you look at, tell me all the weapons that he might have. Not that many. But he still makes do. And to me, the great quarterbacks makes everybody around them better. They don't need all-pro receivers and all-pro offensive linemen. They can make everybody around them better. And I think he has that it factor. Now, obviously, he has to grow into it. He's going to have to keep learning and keep progressing and knowing what defenses are doing to him, knowing that, hey, defensive linemen can run too. They can run you down. But what I saw from him in the tidbits, even when he makes a mistake, he doesn't let it bother him.
No.
He'll go back out there and he's going to keep on slinging it.
He's got the moxie. When we come back, we'll wrap it up. We do this every time. He'll have a game of the week. I'll have a game of the week. We'll take a look ahead at week 2 of the NFL schedule. Rod Woodson, JT, this is Laying the Wood. All right, welcome back to Lay in the Wood. That's Rod Woodson. I'm JT. What we do when we wrap up the pod is we give you a game that we both like here and have an opinion on. I'm going to go first with a game I think is really important because the Lions got humiliated. Yeah. Micah Parsons came in, and Micah Parsons played really well. So I think the Lions are in a really big spot here. Dan Campbell's been talking all week. He's going up against Ben Johnson, who left. The Bears had that game and then gave it to J.J. McCarthy. This feels like a must-win for Detroit. The last two games they played, they got humiliated. Remember, they lost the NFC Championship game to Jaden Daniels. Then the whole offseason, they come in, they play a big rival, and they don't show up against Micah Parsons in Green Bay. It just feels really important to me in this game. They're almost a touchdown favorite. I think the Lions are going to bounce back and win, and they're going to win big. And I think there's problems with Caleb Williams. Ben Johnson did not look happy after that game, and Caleb looks like the media is starting to kind of circle him.
Yeah, Caleb looked like he gets flustered.
Yeah.
And once he gets flustered, he can't bring himself back. He started off the game really good.
That's interesting.
But then once he started having a couple bad passes, which he's throwing off his back foot, the ball's sailing, he couldn't reset himself. And somebody needs to help him reset himself on that sideline, be it a coach, whoever it might be it one of the players. Somebody needs to help him get back to the point where, dude, you're a great player. Don't let it be mental. Because the mental capacity of a player, of an athlete, is critical. To take a leap, he needs that. So I think if they can find somebody to help him do that, he can be a really good player.
I know what I've been waiting to ask you. Lamar was taken in the last pick of the first round. Caleb won the Heisman, just like Lamar was taken number 1 overall. When Caleb is trying to get outside pressure, he reminds me so much of Lamar, running around, head up.
Right.
But what Lamar does is he finishes the play. He either runs for 4 or 5 yards or 12 yards. Caleb just throws it out of bounds.
You know what he needs to do?
What's going on there?
You know what he needs to do is just like, do what you do well until you learn the rest. Right now, you're a really good athlete. You get out the pocket, make them pay for letting you get out the pocket.
He throws it out of bounds.
He throws it out of bounds. Man, take off. Put your foot in the ground. Make a miss. Get an extra 3 or 4 yards. Do what you do well as an athlete and make them pay for not keeping you in the pocket. Now, when we talk about games of the week, that Thursday night game, I'm really thinking about it. Because, Green Bay and Washington, that's going to be a fun game to talk about. But we have to do the Super Bowl rematch. We have to.
Okay.
Philly and KC. You talk about Patrick Mahomes. Yes, he doesn't have a number 1 receiver. But he's going to keep it close because he was a leading rusher for Kansas City this past weekend. I can't remember the last time Patrick Mahomes was a leading rusher for the Kansas City Chiefs. And defensively, I think they will get better. They got some younger players back there who's playing, and they're going to learn. They're going to learn what to do and what not to do. But when you look at Philly is loaded, man.
They are.
They're loaded on defense. They're loaded on offense. But it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think, obviously, Kansas City wants to have that revenge factor, but just because you beat them doesn't mean you're going to win the Super Bowl, this year, or it's going to go back and you get to have that same thing. No, but it puts you in a good category this year because you won't be 0-2. You'll be 1-1. So I think that game is the game of the week.
Well, I'll be at Monday Night Football here in Vegas where we live. It's the Chargers and the Raiders. Big game because it's Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh. We got the Canelo fight. Look at you. You're wearing. Look, you got Canelo, Bud Crawford. I'm going to go Crawford. I'm a big Canelo guy, but I think Crawford, the younger fighter, that's going to be
quicker.
That's going to be at Allegiant Stadium.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a turnaround? They got to take that ring down.
All
of it down, and get it ready for Monday Night Football. That's a big deal. And then you got some traveling coming up here because you're going to Ireland.
Yeah, in a couple weeks, I got to go to Indiana and do some things with the family and whatnot, and then in 2 weeks, a week and a half, go to Ireland and do be a part of the Steelers.
Wow.
Over there, Mr. Rooney building out foundation of that Irish heritage.
I love it.
It's going to be great over there.
Well, great episode. Remember, we want everybody to subscribe, please, and share it. Hit the like button and keep coming back. We're going to do this every week. We want to thank our guest, Hall of Famer Tim Brown.
Timmy.
Yeah, he was exceptional. For Rod Woodson, I'm JT. We'll see you next time on Lay in the Wood.